Imagine you are standing in the boarding line at the airport, you have your boarding pass in your hand, you have a 10-hour flight ahead of you. You walk through the door of the plane, and the first thing you see are those massive seats in the front. They are not just seats. They are individual pods with flat beds and large screens. You see people sitting there with a drink and plenty of space to move their legs. You see the warm towels being handed out. You see the extra pillows. Then you keep walking. You walk past the heavy curtain and the seats start to get smaller. You reach your row in the middle of the plane. You sit down and your knees are almost touching the seat in front of you. You look at the person sitting next to you and you realize it is going to be a very long day. Most of us have been in this exact spot. We look at those business class seats and we think they are for someone else. We think they are for people with corporate accounts or people who have millions of dollars. You might have even checked the price of that seat when you were booking your ticket. You saw a price like $5,000 or maybe even $8,000 for a round trip. Then you looked at your economy ticket, which cost $800. The difference between those two numbers feels like a wall that you can never climb over. It feels like a total mystery why one seat costs 10 times more than the seat only 20 feet behind it. This is where most people stop. They assume that if they want that luxury experience, they just have to pay the cash price or wait for a once-in-a-lifetime sale. But there is a massive gap in the way airlines price these seats. There is a hidden path that allows you to bridge that gap without spending $5,000. We are going to talk about something called point differentials. It is a concept that sounds complicated, but it is actually very simple once you see the numbers. Think about your own credit card points for a second. You might have 50,000 points or maybe 100,000 points sitting in an account right now. You look at those points and you think they might be worth a few $100s in gift cards or maybe a free flight to a nearby city. You do not see them as the key to a $5,000 bed in the sky. That is because the system is designed to make you think that way. The banks and the airlines want you to use your points for low-value things because it saves them money. But when you understand how to use these points to upgrade an existing ticket instead of buying a new one, everything changes. You are not just buying a seat. You are playing a game of math where the rules are actually in your favor, if you know where to look. We are going to break down exactly how you can take an economy ticket and turn it into a business class experience for a fraction of the cost. We are going to look at why the system allows this to happen and how you can take advantage of it every single time you fly. By the end of this conversation, you will understand that those seats in the front of the plane are not out of reach. They are just waiting for you to use a better strategy. You do not need to be a millionaire to fly like one. You just need to understand the logic of the upgrade. To understand why this upgrade strategy works, we have to look at the world the way an airline executive does. For an airline, every single seat on a plane is what we call perishable inventory. This is a concept that exists in many industries, but it is especially brutal in aviation. Think about a grocery store for a moment. If a store has a carton of milk that is going to expire tomorrow, they would rather sell it for 50 cents than get 0 cents for it when they have to throw it away. An airline seat is even more extreme. Once that plane pulls away from the gate and the door is locked, any empty seat in the business class cabin is worth exactly $0. It does not matter if that seat was listed for $6,000 10 minutes earlier. The moment the wheels leave the ground, the opportunity to make money from that space has vanished forever. This reality creates a very specific set of incentives for the people who manage airline prices. These people are part of a department called revenue management. Their entire job is to use complex computer programs to predict exactly how many people will pay full price for a seat and how many seats will likely stay empty. In a perfect world for the airline, every single person in business class would be a corporate traveler paying the highest possible cash fare. But the world is rarely perfect. There are almost always a few seats that the computer predicts will not be sold for cash. This is the first part of the system we are going to exploit. If an airline knows that 5 seats in business class will likely be empty, they have a choice. They can leave them empty and get nothing, or they can find a way to get some value out of them without lowering the price for everyone else. This is where the upgrade system comes in. The airline does not want to announce a massive cash sale because that might encourage their wealthy corporate clients to wait for a discount. Instead, they create a secondary market. This market is hidden from the general public, and it operates using points instead of cash. By allowing you to upgrade an economy ticket using points, the airline is essentially doing a few things at once. First, they are getting you to pay them for an economy ticket with real cash. This covers their basic costs like fuel and the salary of the flight crew. Second, they are taking a certain number of points out of your account. To an airline, those points are a financial liability. They are like a debt the airline owes you. Every time you spend points, the airline is actually improving its own balance sheet by getting rid of that debt. This is why the airline is often very happy to let you move from a $500 economy seat to a $5,000 business class seat for just 25,000 points. They are not losing $5,000. They are gaining the cash you already paid for the economy seat. They are clearing a debt off their books. And they are filling a seat that would have otherwise gone to waste. This leads us to the mechanics of how they actually manage this inventory. Airlines use different letters, called fare classes, to categorize every seat on the plane. You might see a letter like Y or B on your ticket. These letters tell the airline exactly how much you paid and what rules apply to your seat. Most airlines only allow upgrades if you have booked a specific type of economy ticket. They often block the very cheapest tickets from being upgraded because the profit margin is too low. This is the first hurdle many travelers run into. They buy the cheapest basic economy ticket possible, and then they are frustrated when the airline tells them it is not eligible for an upgrade. In the systemic view of the airline, the upgrade is a reward for a customer who is willing to pay a little bit more upfront. However, even when you pay for a slightly more expensive economy ticket, the total cost is still significantly less than buying a business class seat outright. We also have to consider the role of point transfers from credit cards. In 2026, banks like Chase, American Express, and Capital One are some of the biggest customers for airlines. These banks buy billions of points from the airlines to give to you as rewards for using your credit card. This means the airline has already been paid for those points by the bank long before you ever decide to use them. When you transfer those points to an airline to secure an upgrade, you are completing a cycle that started months ago when you were buying groceries or paying for gas. The airline is happy because they have been paid by the bank. They have been paid by you for your economy seat. And they have filled a seat that their computer predicted would be empty. This system is not a mistake or a glitch. It is a carefully designed release valve for inventory. The reason it feels like a hack to us is that the airlines do not make it easy to find these opportunities. They want the process to be just difficult enough that only a small percentage of travelers actually do it. If everyone knew how to do this, the business class cabin would be full of people using points, and nobody would pay the $5,000 cash fare. That would break the airline business model. So, they hide the availability behind different search tools, and they use complex rules about which seats can be upgraded and when. But the core logic remains the same. The airline wants to maximize the value of every square inch of the plane. Once you understand that they would rather have your points than an empty seat, you stop looking at business class as an impossible luxury. You start looking at it as a puzzle where the pieces are already in your hand. You just have to learn how to place them in the right order. In the next section, we are going to look at the specific math of these point differentials and compare the two different ways you can book these seats so you can see the saving for yourself in plain numbers. Now, we are going to look at the actual numbers because this is where the logic of the system becomes undeniable. To understand why this strategy is so effective, we have to compare two very different ways of using your points. Most people who want to fly in a business class seat take the most direct path possible. They go to an airline website, they search for a flight, and they select the business class option. For a long flight from the United States to Europe, you will frequently see a price of 100,000 points or even 150,000 points for a one-way trip. If you are traveling as a couple, that means you need 300,000 points just to get to your destination and back. This is what the industry calls a direct award booking. It is the simplest and most advertised way to use points, but it is also the most expensive path you can take. Now let us look at the second path, which is the point differential strategy. This path requires a two-step process that most travelers never consider. First, you look at the cost of an economy seat on that exact same flight. You might find that an economy seat costs 30,000 points, or you might simply choose to pay $700 in cash. Once you have secured that economy seat, you then look for the price of an upgrade to the business class cabin. On many major international airlines, the price to move from economy to business is a fixed amount. A very common price for this is 25,000 points. Now, do the math with me. If you spent 30,000 points for the economy seat and 25,000 points for the upgrade, your total cost is 55,000 points. Compare that to the 100,000 points the airline was asking for a direct business class booking. You are sitting in the exact same seat. You are eating the same food and using the same flat bed, but by taking the two-step path, you have saved 45,000 points on a single flight. This is the point differential in action. It is the gap between what the airline charges for a finished luxury product and what they charge for the components of that product. You might wonder why an airline would allow such a massive difference in price for the same physical space. It seems like they are leaving money on the table. To understand this, we have to look at how airlines manage their internal databases and what they call revenue buckets. An airline has different buckets of seats available for different types of customers. One bucket, it is strictly for people who want to book a business class seat directly with points. The airline knows that these customers often have a high balance of points and they value convenience. They are willing to pay a premium for a one-click booking experience. A completely different bucket, it is set aside for upgrade space. This bucket it is managed by a different set of rules and often by a different department within the airline. The airline uses the upgrade bucket as a tool to ensure the front of the plane is full without having to lower the price for everyone else. There is another layer to this math when we look at cash transactions. Let us say you decide to pay $700 for your economy ticket instead of using points. You then use your 25,000 points to upgrade that ticket to business class. In this scenario, you have essentially purchased a $5,000 luxury experience for $700 plus 25,000 points. If we value those points at 1 cent each, they are worth $250. Your total effective cost is $950. You have saved over $4,000 by choosing the upgrade path over the full cash price. This works because the airline view of profit is different from our view of cost. Once you have paid for an economy ticket, the airline has already covered the basic costs of the flight. They have paid for the fuel and the crew. Any points you give them to move to a better seat is pure profit for them. It also removes a financial liability from their books because they no longer owe you those points. This is why the upgrade price is often much lower than the price of a direct booking. The airline would rather take a small number of points from an existing passenger than have a luxury seat stay empty for the entire journey. However, you must understand the rules that govern these buckets. This is where the system becomes technical. Airlines use letters called fare classes to categorize every seat. You might see a letter like Y or B or M on your ticket receipt. These letters represent how much you paid and what rules apply to your ticket. Most airlines will only allow you to upgrade if you have booked a specific type of economy ticket. They often block the very cheapest tickets from being upgraded because the profit margin is too thin for them. If you buy a basic economy ticket, which is usually the cheapest option on the website, you will likely find that you cannot upgrade it with points at all. You generally need to buy a standard economy ticket, which might cost $60 or $80 more than the basic version. Even with that slightly higher starting price, the math still heavily favors the upgrade strategy. Another factor you must consider is the timing of when these upgrade seats become available. Just because there is an empty seat in the business class cabin does not mean the airline has placed it in the upgrade bucket yet. They often wait until the last few days before a flight to see if anyone will buy the seat for full cash. This means that using the point differential strategy requires more patience and more monitoring than a direct booking. You have to check the availability frequently or use specialized tools to alert you when a seat moves into the upgrade bucket. But for the traveler who understands these mechanics, the reward is a $5,000 flight for the price of a standard vacation. We also have to account for what is known as a copay. Some airlines will charge you a combination of points and a cash fee to move to the front of the plane. For example, they might ask for 25,000 points plus a fee of $350. Even with this extra cash fee, your total cost remains a small fraction of the retail price. You have to look at the total value of the transaction. If paying $350 and 25,000 points saves you $3,000 in cash, it is a significant mathematical win for your personal finances. In summary, the point differential strategy is about recognizing that a seat in business class does not have one single price. It has a cash price, a direct point price, and an upgrade price. By choosing the upgrade path, you are bypassing the most expensive ways to travel. You are using the airline's own inventory management rules to your advantage. You are taking advantage of the fact that the airline prefers a small gain over a total loss. This is how you turn a modest amount of credit card rewards into an experience that most people think is impossible for their budget. Now that we have mastered the math behind the upgrade, we need to look at the practical side of how this actually happens. In the next section, we will walk through a real-world example of a traveler who put these numbers to work. We will see exactly what they saw on their screen and how they navigated the system to secure a luxury seat for the price of economy. Let us look at a real example of how this works in the real world. Meet a traveler named Mark. Mark wanted to fly from New York to London for a week. When he first started looking at flights, he saw that a business class seat on a major airline was priced at $4,800 for a round trip. Mark is a successful professional, but he does not want to spend $5,000 on a single plane ticket. That feels like a waste of money to him. He looked at the economy price for the same flight, and it was $720. This is a price Mark is very comfortable paying. He booked the economy ticket immediately, but Mark did not stop there. He knew about the point differential strategy. Before he even bought the economy ticket, he logged into his airline account to check for something called reward availability. He saw that for his specific flight, the airline was offering upgrades for 25,000 points each way. Mark had about 60,000 points sitting in his credit card account. He had earned these points over the last few months just by paying for his groceries, his utilities, and his dining out. To Mark, these points felt like a bonus, not like actual cash out of his pocket. He clicked the transfer button on his credit card website and moved 50,000 points to the airline. The transfer happened almost instantly. He then went back to the airline website and applied those points to his existing economy reservation. Within 2 minutes, His seat number changed from row 45 to row 5. When Mark arrived at the airport, he did not stand in the long economy line. He went to the priority check-in desk. He spent 2 hours in the lounge, eating a hot meal and relaxing in a quiet chair. When he boarded the plane, he went straight to his pod. He had a flat bed, a large screen, and high-quality noise-canceling headphones. He slept for 6 hours and arrived in London feeling completely refreshed and ready for his meetings. Let us break down what Mark actually spent. He paid $720 in cash. He also used 50,000 points. If he had tried to book that same business class seat using only points for a direct reward, the airline would have charged him 180,000 points for the round trip. By paying for the economy seat first and then upgrading, Mark saved 130,000 points. That is enough points for another 3 round-trip flights in economy later in the year. Mark did not have to wait for a seasonal sale. He did not have to hope for a mistake fare. He simply used the tools that were already available to him. He felt a sense of relief because he was not cramped in a small seat for 7 hours, but he also felt a sense of financial confidence. He knew he had received over $4,000 in value for a very small amount of effort. This is the difference between being a passive consumer and being a point hacker. Mark understood that the airline wants to fill those seats, and he was ready to provide the points to make it happen. You can see his credit card statement and his airline receipt side by side. One shows the $720 charge, and the other shows the 50,000-point deduction. There are no hidden fees or surprise costs. This is a clean and repeatable process. Mark now uses this strategy for every international trip he takes. He has realized that once you know how to look for these gaps in the pricing system, it is very hard to go back to paying full price or sitting in the back of the plane. He is not doing anything illegal or even sneaky. He is just choosing the most efficient path through a system that is designed to be confusing. When you see the numbers laid out like this, the confusion disappears. It is just basic math and a little bit of planning. Mark is now in London, enjoying his trip, and he still has 10,000 points left over in his account for his next domestic flight. This is what we mean when we say that clarity is more important than hype. You do not need a secret code. You just need to follow the steps that Mark followed. Think about the last time you logged into your credit card account and looked at your points balance. You probably saw a large number like 50,000 or 100,000 points and felt a small sense of accomplishment. But you probably also felt a bit of confusion about what that number actually represents. It is not quite cash, and it is not quite a flight yet. This feeling of confusion is actually a byproduct of the system we are operating in. To truly understand why you can save thousands of dollars, you have to realize that you are sitting in the middle of a massive financial arrangement between two of the largest industries in the world. On one side, you have the banks like American Express or Chase or Capital One. On the other side, you have the airlines. These two groups have a relationship that is worth billions of dollars every single year. The banks are actually the biggest customers the airlines have. The banks buy points from the airlines in bulk at a wholesale price. They do this because they want to give you a reason to use their credit card instead of a card from a different bank. When you earn a point for every dollar you spend, the bank is essentially buying a tiny piece of a future flight and holding it for you. This is why your points are so valuable. They represent real money that has already changed hands behind the scenes. However, the true power of these points is not in spending them on the bank's own website. If you go to a credit card portal and book a flight there, you are usually getting a fixed value. The bank might give you 1 cent or maybe 1.5 cents for every point you have. This is a simple transaction where the bank acts like a travel agent. But when you use a transfer partner, the entire system shifts in your favor. When you move your points from the bank to an airline loyalty program, You are taking those points out of the bank's ecosystem and putting them into the airline's ecosystem. At this moment, the points stop being a fixed currency and they start being a flexible tool. This is where the point differential strategy lies. The airline is willing to give you a much better deal on an upgrade because they have already been paid by the bank for those points. For the airline, the most important thing is filling the seat and clearing the debt of those points from their records. This is a systemic release valve. The banks want you to keep using the card, and the airlines want to fill their planes. You are the one who provides the direction for where that value goes. You should think of your credit card points as a liquid asset that can be converted into different forms of value depending on where you send them. If you send them to the airline to book a business class seat directly, you are using the most common path. But by using them to upgrade an economy ticket, you are taking advantage of a specific gap in how these companies interact. The airline sees your cash payment for the economy seat as immediate revenue. They see your points as a way to fill an empty space in the front of the plane that they probably would not have sold for cash anyway. This is why the transfer partners are so important. They are the only way to move your value from the bank's world of fixed prices into the airline's world of perishable inventory and fare classes. In 2026, these partnerships are more robust than ever before. Most major banks have at least a dozen different airlines they work with. This gives you the power to look across multiple different systems to find where the upgrade space is available. You are not locked into just one airline or one set of rules. You can compare the upgrade cost on a flight to London with the upgrade cost on a flight to Tokyo and choose the one that gives you the best return on your points. This integration of the bank's money and the airline's empty seats is the engine of the entire points and miles industry. It works because it serves the needs of every party involved. The bank is happy because you are a loyal customer. The airline is happy because they got your cash for the economy seat and filled a luxury pod. And you are happy because you are lying flat in a bed that would have cost $5,000 if you had paid the retail price. Understanding this system is what separates the casual traveler from the expert. The casual traveler sees points as a small discount or a free gift. The expert sees points as a strategic currency that can be moved across different platforms to exploit price differences. This is not about getting something for free. It is about being the most efficient person in a complex market. By the time you are ready to book your next flight, you should be looking at your credit card balance not as a number of points, but as a set of opportunities to bridge the gap between economy and luxury. You are essentially acting as your own travel agent and your own financial manager at the same time. The more you understand how the bank and the airline talk to each other, the more you can benefit from their relationship. In our final section, we are going to wrap everything together into a clear plan of action. We will go over the specific steps you should take the next time you are ready to book a trip so you can ensure you are getting the maximum possible value for every single dollar and every single point. We have moved through a lot of information in a short amount of time. You started this conversation as a traveler who looked at the front of the plane with a sense of frustration. You saw a $5,000 price tag and you saw a wall that was impossible to climb. Now that wall has been replaced by a bridge. You see the connections between the banks and the airlines. You see the math of the point differential. You understand that booking an economy ticket for $700 and using 25,000 points is a completely different financial decision than paying $5,000 in cash. This is where you have to integrate all of these pieces into your own life. You have to look at your credit card balance and see it as more than just a number. It is a tool that allows you to buy back your own time and your own health. A 10-hour flight in a cramped seat is not just a nuisance. It is a physical toll on your body that can ruin the first 2 days of your vacation or your business trip. When you use this strategy, you are not just saving money, you are protecting your own energy. But we have to talk about the friction. because the system is not perfectly smooth. The most personal part of this process is the moment you have to decide between a cheap ticket and an eligible ticket. You go to the website and you see a basic economy fare for $600. Right next to it is a standard economy fare for $680. Your instinct is to save the $80. This is where most people fail. They choose the immediate small saving, and they forfeit the chance to get $4,000 of value later. You have to be the person who is willing to pay $80 more today to save $3,000 tomorrow. That is a hard mental shift to make when you are looking at your checkout screen. You also have to deal with the anxiety of the transfer process. When you move those points from a bank to an airline, you are making a permanent decision. Those points cannot be moved back. You are essentially taking a bet that the upgrade space will still be there by the time the transfer clears. This is the moment where your heart rate starts to increase. You are staring at the screen and hoping that the inventory does not disappear in the 30 seconds it takes for the website to refresh. In 2026, the competition for these seats is higher than it has ever been. More people have points than at any other time in history. The airlines are getting better at using artificial intelligence to predict exactly how many seats they can sell for full cash. This means the windows for these upgrades are getting smaller. They are opening and closing in a matter of hours. You might see availability on a Tuesday morning and find that it is gone by Tuesday afternoon. This is the reality of the game we are playing. You are competing against thousands of other people who have watched the same videos and read the same blogs. You are all hunting for the same 5 or 10 seats on a single plane. This is not a relaxing hobby, it is a tactical operation. You have to be ready with your computer open and your points ready to move at a moment's notice. You have to be comfortable with the idea that you might do everything right and still not get the seat because someone else was 5 seconds faster. This is the open wound of the points world. There is no guarantee of success. The system is designed to be just efficient enough to work, but just difficult enough to frustrate you. You now have the logic and the math. You know about the fare classes and the revenue buckets and the bank partnerships. You have seen how Mark did it, and you have seen how much money he kept in his pocket. But knowing the rules does not mean you have won the game. It only means you are finally allowed to play. The next time you sit down to book a flight, you are going to feel that weight of responsibility. You are going to look at that business class pod and realize it is only a few clicks away, but you are also going to realize how easily it can slip through your fingers. The seats are being booked while you are listening to this. The inventory is shifting. The prices are moving. You have to decide if you are the person who is going to act on this information or the person who is going to keep walking past that curtain and sitting in row 45. The luxury is there, the math is clear, but the clock is always ticking, and the system does not care if you get a bed or a cramped seat. Only you care about that. And the only thing standing between you and that $5,000 experience is your ability to execute this strategy before the bucket is empty. There is no more advice to give. There are no more examples to show. The logic is complete. Now it is just you and the screen and the countdown until your next flight takes off.